Hello, clever people, and welcome to my review for the Book of Henry. So the Book of Henry stars Naomi Watts and is directed by Colin Trevorrow, who is directing the upcoming Star Wars movie, Star Wars The Last Jedi, and it follows the story of a young boy who is basically a genius. He's incredibly smart, he's really good with math, he's really good with science, he's really good with all that type of stuff, and he lives with a single mother because the father, it's never really explained, but basically he's just gone, and his little brother, played by Jacob Tremblay. So basically it's the three of them living, but when the little boy finds out that there's something mysterious going on with the girl next door, he tries to investigate it and tries to figure it out. And while certain things are happening, something happens to this little kid that I will not spoil because the trailers did not show it. So the Book of Henry, I was kind of excited to see. I was more curious than excited, because it's directed by Colin Trevorrow, who is making Star Wars The Last Jedi, which I am really begging is good right now, because honestly, I'm a little unsure about Disney with Star Wars. The Force Awakens was amazing, but then you had Rogue One, which was pretty good, but it definitely could have used a lot of improvement. You have Episode 8 coming out, and then Colin Trevorrow is doing Episode 9. And you also have a lot of issues with the Han Solo movie, so right now I'm a little unsure about Star Wars being at Disney, and this movie definitely did not help that. Now, the Book of Henry is not an awful movie, and in fact, I don't think it's as bad as a lot of the reviews were saying. That was part of the reason that I was more curious than excited. I was excited from the trailers, but when it came to the reviews, they were negative. People were slamming it, calling it awful, but I honestly don't think it's that bad. I think that the Book of Henry has a lot of very good parts to it. For one, the acting is great. I'm not sure the little girl's name, but she was really great. She didn't really have a lot of lines, she didn't have a lot of dialogue, but she emoted a lot. And then Jacob Tremblay and the other little kid, they were very good. Naomi Watts was a little bit cheesy at times, but for the most part she was good. And whoever played the evil stepdad, he was very, very good. So all around, you had some very good performances and some fairly good dialogue. Now, the dialogue wasn't so great in certain moments, and notice how I say dialogue and not screenplay, because the screenplay I'll get to later as one of my big negatives. But the dialogue, for the most part, was alright. It never sounded too unrealistic, it was never too preachy or never too cheesy. It was exactly what it should have been, because supposedly the guy that made this spent like 10 years on the screenplay, or something crazy like that, and though the screenplay itself is very weak, thankfully out of those 10 years he did get some very well written, very well thought out dialogue. Unfortunately, the Book of Henry is a friendly reminder of something that people seem to be forgetting recently. It's that originality does not mean that a movie's good, because the Book of Henry has a lot of issues with originality. It's a very original movie, it has a lot of original concepts and ideas. Unfortunately, those don't work for it, because it takes a completely different turn about 40 minutes in, and even a turn that they didn't show in the trailers that I didn't see coming. And then it sort of just got darker and darker as it went along, and it sort of felt like 5 or 6 movies just sort of meshed together in one. I honestly felt like I had seen a couple movies coming out instead of just one consistent movie, because the tone was all over the place, it was scattered, and it was supposed to be like that, but it didn't really work for the movie's context. And then the multiple different subplots also didn't help with that, because honestly I didn't really care too much about what was going on in this movie. I was given a lot of reason to, and the strong performances helped, but honestly I felt like this movie probably should have just picked one way and went for it, and instead just be that one thing, because for maybe the first hour or so I thought that the Book of Henry was actually good. And it's what comes later, the second act, or the second half, that really ruins it. Because I thought that for certain parts of this movie, there's quite a few scenes in here that are really well directed and are very good standalone scenes. And a lot of it has to do with grief. A lot of that part was very good. Unfortunately, it's just that overall as one movie, you look at it and it's just sort of convoluted and it's really messy. But also the screenplay is extremely flawed, because honestly the director or the writer just wrote in a lot of really stupid, really awful moments. Like there's a moment where this like 40-year-old woman kind of confesses her love for an 11-year-old. they sort of like kiss on the lips, and it's really weird. And then there's also a scene where a little kid is rapping on stage, and it's just little moments like that that sort of made me just say, okay, this movie is really awful. It's little moments like that that sort of make it so that the movie is just, those scenes are absolutely terrible. It's the type of stuff that you'd find in certain movies that are like considered the worst of all time. And I watched that and I was sort of offended just how someone could write something so moronic and asinine as that, and that it gets into Hollywood. Again, certain scenes are good, but there are just a lot of certain scenes are bad, and it meanders like crazy, just going all over the place. Now, I think that the Book of Henry definitely could have been a good movie if you had a better script. I can't even say a more thought out script, because clearly the writer thought it out a lot. Unfortunately, it's just too convoluted and messy, and I think maybe there's a disconnect between the director and the writer, though honestly, the directing was really strong for the most part. And I'm not sure that I've completely given up on faith on Colin Trevorrow directing episode 9, but this movie definitely didn't help, because the main part of why a movie goes wrong is its director. And when a movie like this is, bad like this, you can't really blame anyone else other than Colin Trevorrow. It's messy, it's convoluted, and it definitely could have used a more clear look on what it was trying to be. I think there's a good movie here, but unfortunately, it's not what was presented. I will give The Book of Henry a 4 out of 10. Alright, that concludes my review for The Book of Henry. What are your thoughts on this film, or Colin Trevorrow directing episode 9? Comment in the comment section below, and let me know. I am Robert Burke, and this has been The Clever Critics. Goodbye.